Picture yourself threading gold through crimson silk, where every stitch whispers of lions and legacy, and even the tapestries judge your technique with Lannister smugness. Welcome to Whispered Sleep Sagas, where starlit tales unravel into dreams. Dim the lights, nestle into your coziest spot, exhale your cares, sink into softness, and let tonight's story, gentler than a hobbit's nap, carry you to sleep's cozy embrace. If this tale lulled you toward dreams or made you chuckle like a court fool tripping over their own wit, give it a like and subscribe. No pressure. My ego's as sturdy as a master's chain in a storm. But your support keeps the firelit stories burning. The morning light filters through the narrow windows of Casterly Rock's weaving chambers, casting long shadows across bolts of silk and wool that seem to shimmer with their own inner fire. The great fortress carved into the living rock speaks of power older than memory, where Lannister gold flows as freely as wine at a name-day feast. Here, in these chambers that smell of dye and determination, the true magic of wealth takes shape, not in the counting of coins, but in the threading of dreams into fabric. You wake before dawn, as you have for the past 7 years, your fingers already twitching with the muscle memory of warp and weft. The stone floors are cold beneath your feet, a reminder that even in the wealthiest house in Westeros, comfort comes to those who earn it. Your small chamber adjoins the main weaving hall, a privilege granted to master weavers who've proven their worth with needle and thread. The sound of your stirring echoes softly through the corridors, joining the symphony of a great house awakening. Distant footsteps of servants, the clatter of pots from kitchens far below, and somewhere the soft scratch of quills as meisters record the endless business of lions. The weaving traditions of the Westerlands stretch back to the age of heroes, when the first Lannisters discovered the gold thread could tell stories as lasting as any song. Every tapestry hanging in these halls represents not just artistry, but investment, political marriages sealed with silk, alliances woven into patterns that speak to those who know how to read them. Your role in this grand design is both humble and essential, like a single thread that, if pulled wrong, could unravel an entire masterpiece. As you splash cold water on your face from the basin beside your narrow bed, you catch your reflection in the polished copper mirror, a gift from Lord Berkshire himself, after you completed the great hunting tapestry that took 3 years to finish. Your hands show the calluses and small scars that mark any craftsperson's devotion, tiny permanent reminders of needles that slipped and dyes that burned. But your eyes hold the particular satisfaction of someone who creates beauty for the most discerning patrons in the 7 kingdoms, where good enough is a phrase that would earn you a one-way trip to the nearest fishing village. You dress in the practical clothes of your station, sturdy wool dyed in deep browns and greys, with an apron that's seen more battles than some knights. The fabric speaks of function over fashion, though even your work clothes bear the subtle quality that marks everything touched by Lannister gold. The boots are leather soft enough to move silently through the halls, essential when your work requires you to slip between the chambers of lords and ladies who prefer their luxury creation to remain mysteriously invisible. The main weaving hall greets you with the familiar scent of wool and ambition, where great looms stand like wooden soldiers, ready for another day's campaign against chaos. Light streams through windows positioned to catch every precious ray of sun, because proper color matching waits for no lord's convenience. The morning air carries hints of the dyes you'll be working with today. Madder root for the deep crimsons, weld for the golden yellows, and indigo for blues so deep they seem to hold pieces of the narrow sea itself. Your first task is always the same, checking the great loom where yesterday's work waits like a sleeping dragon. The current commission is a tapestry celebrating the third name day of Lord Berkshire's youngest son, a piece that will hang in the boy's chambers until he's old enough to appreciate that the golden lions dancing across silk meadows cost more than most small folk see in a lifetime. The work is intricate, each lion's mane requiring 7 different shades of gold thread, because apparently regular gold isn't quite golden enough for Lannister standards. The loom itself is a masterpiece of engineering, built by craftsmen from Lys who understand that creating beauty requires tools worthy of the task. Its frame is carved from ironwood shipped from the Summer Isles, dark and strong enough to hold tension that would snap lesser wood like kindling. The heddles are polished steel, each one positioned with the precision of a maester's instruments, because even the smallest misalignment would show in the final weaving like a false note in a perfect song. You run your fingers along with yesterday's work, checking for the tension and evenness that separate master craftsmanship from the adequate tapestries that lesser houses settle for. The silk threads catch the morning light, and you can see the subtle variations in dye that will create depth and movement when viewed from across a great hall. This is the secret that many weavers never learn. The true artistry lies not in perfection, but in the controlled imperfections that make fabric seem alive. The sound of footsteps in the corridor announces the arrival of Maester Qyburn's assistant, a nervous young man named Tomber, who serves as liaison between the scholarly requirements of heraldry and the practical demands of thread and needle. He carries a leather portfolio filled with sketches and color samples, his face bearing the expression of someone who's learned that creativity and bureaucracy make uncomfortable bedfellows. "Good morning, Master Kyle," he says, using the title that still brings a small thrill of pride even after all these years. Lord Berkshire wishes to discuss modifications to the hunting scene commission. You suppress a sigh that would do credit to any long-suffering artisan who's learned that small modifications from nobles tend to multiply like rabbits in spring. The hunting scene in question is a massive undertaking, 12 feet wide and 8 feet tall, depicting Lord Berkshire's legendary boar hunt from his youth. The piece has been in progress for 8 months, each detail researched and planned with the devotion usually reserved for siege warfare. What manner of modifications, you ask, though experience has taught you that nobles' artistic visions tend to expand like dough left too long in warm kitchens. Tomber unfurls a new sketch, and your heart sinks with the weight of artistic resignation. The original design showed Lord Berkshire on horseback, spears raised dramatically as a magnificent boar charged through a forest clearing. Simple, elegant, achievable. The new sketch shows the same scene, but now includes his 3 hunting hounds, 2 additional riders, a detailed background featuring Casterly Rock itself, and what appears to be a golden eagle soaring overhead for symbolic effect. His lordship feels the original design lacked grandeur, Tomber explains with the apologetic tone of someone delivering news about plague rats in the granary. You study the sketch with the practiced eye of someone who's learned to translate noble enthusiasm into practical reality. The additional elements aren't impossible, merely expensive in time and materials. The hunting hounds alone will require mapping each individual hair in 3 different shades of brown, while the background view of Casterly Rock will demand architectural precision that would challenge a castle's architect. When does his lordship require completion, you ask, though you already suspect the answer will challenge both physics and sanity. The harvest feast, Tomber replies, 6 weeks hence. You nod with the calm acceptance of someone who's learned that arguing with impossible deadlines is like debating theology with a septon. Technically possible, but ultimately futile. Instead, you begin mentally calculating thread requirements, assistant hours, and the amount of lamp oil needed for the late-night work sessions that will define your next month and a half. I'll need additional crimson silk for the hound's collars, you say, falling into the practical planning that transforms impossible dreams into achievable reality. And more gold thread for the rock's towers. The perspective will require gradations that weren't in the original design. Tomber makes notes with the grateful efficiency of someone who's learned that practical people are worth their weight in Valyrian steel. As he writes, you're already seeing the modifications in your mind's eye, understanding how the additional elements will affect the overall composition. The eagle, positioned correctly, could actually enhance the dramatic tension. The hounds will add movement and life to what was perhaps too static a scene. Even the rock in the background could provide the kind of grandeur that makes nobles feel their gold was well spent. I'll also need 2 additional apprentices, you continue, because there's no point in accepting impossible tasks without demanding the resources to achieve them. Young fingers for the detail work and fresh eyes for the color matching. The morning continues with the familiar rhythm of creative work shaped by practical constraints. You begin by adjusting the loom tension for the new sections, a process that requires the same delicate touch as tuning a harp. Too tight, and the threads snap under pressure. Too loose, and the weaving lacks the crispness that distinguishes professional work from ambitious attempts. Your first apprentice arrives as the sun climbs higher, a girl named Mira, whose parents sent her from Lannisport with the hope that steady work in service to the great house might lead to prosperity. She has the quick fingers and patient temperament that mark natural weavers, though her tendency to hum while working sometimes disrupts the meditative quiet that complex weaving requires. "Morning, Master Kyle," she says, tying her apron with movements that have become ritual over the months of training. "Shall I prepare the new dye baths?" You nod toward the great cauldrons that serve as the foundation of your color palette. Dyeing is perhaps the most crucial and least forgiving aspect of weaving. Mistakes in the dye pot can ruin weeks of work, while perfect colors can elevate adequate technique into something approaching art. The process requires the precision of alchemy and the patience of growing seasons, because the best colors develop slowly, like fine wine or political alliances. Mira moves with the careful confidence of someone who's learned that haste and hot dye make painful combinations. She begins by grinding madder roots for the deep crimsons that will define the boar's bristling hide. the sound of mortar against pestle, providing a steady rhythm that matches the clicking of your loom. The scent of the crushed root fills the air with earthy richness, like autumn forests and fresh-turned soil. "Remember the mordant," you call softly, watching as she measures alum with the care of a maester preparing medicines. The mordant is what binds dye to fibre, making colours permanent rather than pretty suggestions that fade with the first washing. Like many aspects of your craft, it's invisible when done right and catastrophic when done wrong. The morning light shifts and strengthens, revealing the true colours of yesterday's work. This is always the moment of truth. What seemed perfect by candlelight sometimes proves disappointingly dull in honest daylight. But today's inspection brings satisfaction rather than dismay. The lion's mane catches the sun like spun gold, each thread contributing to an effect that seems to give the creature life and movement. You settle into the rhythm of weaving, where conscious thought fades into the meditation of repeated motion. Pass the shuttle through the shed, beat the weft into place, change the harness to create the next line of pattern. Your hands move with the unconscious precision of breathing, while your mind contemplates the larger design taking shape thread by thread. The great houses of Westeros understand something that merchant families often miss. The true luxury lies not in ostentation, but in perfection of detail. A Lannister tapestry must be flawless, not just from across the hall, but under close examination by rivals searching for any sign of weakness or corner cutting. Every thread must be precisely placed, every colour perfectly matched, because in the Game of Thrones, even decorative arts serve as weapons of political warfare. Around midday, when the light reaches its strongest and most accurate, you pause to assess the morning's progress. The boar's form is emerging from the silk background like a creature materializing from mist, its fierce eye gleaming with thread-caught light. The work is proceeding well, though the addition of Lord Berkshire's modifications will require careful planning to maintain the composition's balance. Mira approaches with samples of the new dye batches, holding them up to catch the natural light. The crimsons are perfect, deep and rich without trending toward purple or orange. The browns show the subtle variations that will give the hunting hounds individual character rather than making them appear as identical copies. Even the challenging blues for the sky background have achieved the clarity that will make viewers feel they're looking at actual heavens rather than dyed thread. These will serve excellently, you tell her, and watch her face light with the pride that comes from mastering difficult skills. Training apprentices is one of the unexpected pleasures of your position. Watching young people discover they can create beauty with their own hands, that they possess abilities they never suspected. The afternoon brings different challenges as you begin incorporating the sketch modifications into existing work. This requires the kind of three-dimensional thinking that would challenge an architect, visualizing how new elements will interact with what's already in place. The hunting hounds must appear to move through the forest floor without covering important details of the boar or background trees. You begin by creating small test pieces, sample weavings that allow you to experiment with color combinations and techniques without risking the main commission. This is patient work that less experienced weavers sometimes skip. But you've learned that an hour of testing can save days of unwinding mistakes. The test samples pile beside your loom like a scholar's notes, each one contributing to the knowledge that will make the final piece successful. The sound of your shuttle creates a steady rhythm that mingles with the distant sounds of castle life. Servants calling to each other, the clash of practice swords from the yard, horses' hooves on cobblestones as messengers arrive and depart. These sounds form the soundtrack to your work, familiar and comforting as a favorite song. You're part of the great organism that is Casterly Rock, your contribution as essential as any guard's vigilance or cook's skill. Late afternoon brings visitors, Lord Berkshire himself, accompanied by his steward and what appears to be a visiting lord from the Reach, judging by the green and gold of his clothing. Lords rarely visit the workshops personally unless they're either very pleased or very concerned, and you pause your work to offer appropriate respect. Master Kyle, Lord Berkshire says, with the particular warmth he reserves for valued servants, I've come to show Lord Hightower your work on the hunting tapestry. He's considering commissioning a piece for his own hall. You step aside to allow the lords a clear view of the loom, watching their faces as they examine the emerging artwork. Lord Hightower's expression shows the appreciation of someone who understands quality, his eyes taking in details that many viewers would miss. He leans closer to examine the technique of the lion's mane, where 7 different gold threads create an effect of depth and movement. Remarkable craftsmanship, he murmurs, and you feel the familiar glow of professional pride. The detail work rivals anything I've seen from the Free Cities. Master Cal trained in Myr before entering our service. Lord Berkshire explains with the proprietary satisfaction of someone displaying a prized possession. His techniques combine the best of Westerosi tradition with Eastern innovation. The conversation continues, with the lords discussing commission details, while you return to your work, your hands maintaining their rhythm, while your ears catch fragments of artistic requirements and political implications. A commission from House Hightower would be prestigious work, the kind that enhances reputation throughout the realm. But it would also mean months of intensive labor, probably requiring additional assistance and expanding your workshop space. As the lords depart, Lord Berkshire pauses to speak privately. The harvest feast approaches quickly, Master Kale. Will the hunting piece be ready? It will be completed on schedule, my lord. You reply with the confidence of someone who's learned to make impossible deadlines become achievable reality through careful planning and dedicated work. Excellent. And the quality will reflect the honor of House Lannister, you answer, which is really the only response that matters. Quality isn't negotiable when you serve the lions of Casterly Rock. Evening approaches with the subtle shift in light that signals the transition from day work to evening tasks. You pause to light the oil lamps that will extend your working hours, their warm glow transforming the workshop atmosphere from business-like efficiency to something more intimate and contemplative. Night work has its own rhythm, quieter and more focused than the bustling energy of daylight hours. Mira departs for the evening meal in the servants' hall, leaving you alone with your loom and the growing tapestry. This is often when your best work happens, when the distractions of castle life fade away, and you can lose yourself completely in the meditation of creation. Your shuttle moves through the warp threads, like a silver fish swimming through golden reeds, each pass contributing to the larger pattern that exists as much in your mind as on the loom. The boar's eye emerges thread by thread, requiring the kind of precise color work that separates masterful technique from merely competent craftsmanship. You use 12 different shades to create the illusion of depth and life, browns ranging from pale cedar to deep walnut, with touches of amber and gold that will catch lamplight when the finished piece hangs in Lord Berkshire's hall. Hours pass unmarked except by the progress of your work and the gradual shift from natural light to oil lamp illumination. The castle settles into its evening rhythms. Distant laughter from the great hall where dinner continues, the change of guard on the walls, the soft footsteps of servants completing final tasks before sleep. You work within this cocoon of sounds, part of the great house's daily cycle, yet separate in your creative focus. Near midnight, you finally pause to assess the day's accomplishments. The hunting scene has grown visibly, the boar now clearly defined, and the forest background taking shape with convincing depth. The additional elements from Lord Berkshire's modifications are beginning to integrate naturally into the composition, enhancing rather than cluttering the original design. You clean your tools with the careful attention they deserve. Shuttles oiled and wound, needles cleaned and counted, dye pots covered to prevent contamination. These rituals of maintenance are as important as the creative work itself, because tomorrow's success depends on today's preparation. Your tools are extensions of your skill, and caring for them properly is both practical necessity and a mark of professional respect. The walk to your chamber leads through corridors lined with tapestries created by your predecessors, their work bearing witness to centuries of Lannister artistic patronage. Some pieces date back 200 years, their colors still vibrant thanks to quality materials and proper care. You pause before a particularly fine piece depicting Lan the Clever's legendary acquisition of Casterly Rock, admiring the way the unknown weaver managed to suggest cunning and intelligence in the legendary figure's expression using nothing but colored thread. These ancient tapestries serve as both inspiration and challenge, proof that your craft can create works that outlast their creators, carrying stories and beauty forward through generations. Your own work will someday hang among these pieces, judged by weavers not yet born, contributing to the artistic legacy that makes House Lannister's power visible in thread and silk as well as gold and steel. Sleep comes easily after the focused work of creation, your dreams filled with patterns and colors that blend into fantasies of perfect tapestries, where every thread falls into place with impossible precision. In sleep, your shuttle moves through warp threads made of moonbeams, creating pictures that tell the secret stories of lions and the golden dreams that built an empire carved from living rock. Morning returns with the familiar rhythm of castle life awakening, though today brings the particular energy that accompanies approaching deadlines. 6 weeks has become 5.5, and each day's work must contribute measurably to the final goal. You rise before dawn, as has become habit, your body automatically adjusting to the schedule that complex commissions demand. The workshop greets you with the comforting sense of wool and ambition. Yesterday's work, waiting like a faithful friend who's kept watch through the night. The hunting scene has grown visibly, the boar now dominating the center of the composition with fierce vitality. Its tusks gleam with touches of ivory-colored silk, while its bristling hide suggests movement and dangerous power. Mira arrives with the enthusiasm of youth facing interesting challenges, carrying samples of thread that arrived yesterday from suppliers in Lannisport. The new materials include silk thread dyed in subtle gradations that will perfect the background sky, and metallic threads that will add gleaming highlights to armor and weapons without overwhelming the natural palette. The silver threads are particularly fine, she observes, holding them up to catch the morning light. They'll give Lord Berkshire's spear point the gleam it needs without looking artificial. You examine the samples with the critical eye of someone who knows that small details often determine the success of large projects. The silver threads are indeed excellent, fine enough for delicate work, yet strong enough to withstand the tension of weaving. Their color is true silver rather than the grayish tint that marks inferior materials. Important because cheap metallic threads can make expensive tapestries look tawdry under certain lighting conditions. The morning's work focuses on the forest background, where individual trees must suggest an entire woodland without overwhelming the central action. This requires the kind of artistic restraint that many weavers find challenging, knowing when to include detail and when to suggest rather than specify. Too much background detail competes with the main figures, while too little makes the scene feel empty and unconvincing. You begin with the great oak that will frame the left side of the composition, its trunk requiring careful color work to suggest both strength and age. Ancient oaks have their own character, bark marked by centuries of weather and growth, and capturing this authenticity requires understanding how light and shadow play across textured surfaces. The technique involves building up layers of color that create visual depth without adding physical thickness to the tapestry. Base colors provide the overall tone, while careful additions of highlight and shadow threads create the illusion of three-dimensional form. It's painstaking work that requires constant reference to your detailed sketches and color samples. Around mid-morning, the castle's routine brings an unexpected visitor. Septon Bath, the elderly cleric who serves as moral advisor to Lord Berkshire's family. His presence in the workshop is unusual enough to pause your work, though his expression suggests curiosity rather than concern. Master Kyle, he says with the measured tones that mark those who've spent decades delivering careful words to powerful people. I've come to discuss the symbolic elements in Lord Berkshire's tapestry. This opens a conversation that reveals another layer of complexity in serving noble patrons. What appears to be simple artistic decoration often carries political and religious significance that must be navigated with diplomatic skill. The golden eagle you've included soaring overhead, for instance, might be interpreted as reference to House Arryn, potentially problematic given current political tensions. Perhaps a lion cub in the background, Septon Bath suggests tactfully, would better serve the composition's symbolic requirements. You nod, understanding, already visualizing how this change will affect the overall design. A lion cub adds genealogical symbolism, suggesting future strength and the continuation of bloodlines, while avoiding potential political complications. It also provides an opportunity for some of your finest detail work, since young lions have a particular charm that older, fiercer versions lack. These conversations about symbolic content remind you that master weavers must understand heraldry, history, and politics as thoroughly as they understand thread and dye. Your tapestries don't simply decorate walls. They communicate messages about power, legitimacy, and aspirations to audiences who read meaning into every detail. The midday meal brings a brief respite from the loom, though your mind remains focused on solving the artistic challenges that the morning's work revealed. You eat in the servants' hall, surrounded by the comfortable chatter of people who understand the rhythms of castle life. The food is simple but good. Brown bread, cheese aged in the rock's deep cellars, and small beer that's safer than water and more refreshing than wine. Conversation around the table touches on the various preparations for the harvest feast. Now, just 5 weeks away, the Great Hall is being cleaned and decorated. The kitchens are planning menus that will demonstrate Lannister abundance, and musicians are rehearsing pieces that will entertain guests from across the Westerlands. Your tapestry will be unveiled as the feast's centerpiece, adding artistic splendor to the political theater that defines noble gatherings. The afternoon work session focuses on the hunting hounds, each requiring individual character despite their similar basic form. Real hunting dogs develop distinct personalities over years of training and companionship, and capturing this authenticity requires careful observation of how stance, expression, and posture communicate canine individuality. You begin with the lead hound, positioned in the foreground, where detail work will be most visible. This animal must suggest intelligence, loyalty, and controlled aggression, the qualities that make hunting dogs valuable to noble households. Its coat will be primarily brown with white markings, but achieving convincing dog fur texture requires understanding how canine hair lies and catches light. The technique involves varying thread directions to suggest the natural patterns of fur growth, with careful attention to the places where different colors meet. White chest markings must blend naturally into brown sides, while the black of the nose and lips requires subtle gradations that prevent flat, artificial appearance. Mira works beside you on preparatory tasks, winding bobbins, organizing thread by color families, and maintaining the dye bars that keep your palette options fresh. Her skills have grown noticeably over the months of training, and she's beginning to show the artistic instincts that separate competent weavers from those who might someday achieve mastery. The hound's ear position suggests alertness, she observes, studying your work with the growing critical eye that marks serious apprentices, as if he's heard something the other dogs missed. This kind of observation indicates that she's learning to see art as communication rather than mere decoration, understanding that every element in a composition should contribute to the overall story being told. Her comment also suggests a refinement approach that will improve the final result. Late afternoon brings the familiar rhythm of deep focus work, when the outside world fades and creation becomes a form of meditation. Your shuttle moves through the warp threads with unconscious precision, while your mind contemplates the larger patterns emerging from individual thread placements. This is the mental state where true artistry happens, where technical skill merges with creative vision to produce results that transcend their component parts. The hunting scene grows steadily, each day's work building on previous accomplishments, while solving new challenges revealed by the emerging composition. The boar now dominates the center with convincing ferocity, while the forest background provides depth without distraction. Lord Berkshire's figure is taking shape with a dignity appropriate to noble representation, his spear poised at the moment of greatest dramatic tension. Evening work continues by oil lamp, the warm light creating an intimate atmosphere that encourages the kind of detailed focus that daylight sometimes makes difficult. Night weaving has its own pleasures. The concentration possible when castle life settles into quieter rhythms, and the particular satisfaction of watching complex patterns emerge thread by thread under golden illumination. You work until the small hours, pausing only when eye strain threatens the precision that fine detail requires. Tomorrow will bring new challenges as the composition approaches completion, but tonight's work has advanced the project measurably toward its deadline. The hunting tapestry is becoming the masterpiece that Lord Berkshire's commission deserves, worthy of hanging in the halls where Lannister power displays itself in silk and gold. The days pass in focused rhythm, each bringing the harvest feast deadline closer while the tapestry approaches completion. Your workshop has expanded to accommodate 2 additional apprentices, young people whose eager faces remind you of your own early days, learning the mysteries of warp and weft. The chamber buzzes with productive activity as multiple hands contribute to the common goal of creating something worthy of House Lannister's reputation. Master craftsmanship reveals itself not just in individual skill, but in the ability to coordinate multiple workers toward a unified artistic vision. You find yourself spending as much time teaching and directing as weaving, explaining the subtle techniques that create professional results rather than ambitious attempts. The apprentices are eager to learn, their questions revealing both genuine curiosity and the healthy ambition that drives artistic improvement. Why do we vary the thread tension in the sky sections? Asks Willem, the youngest apprentice, whose quick fingers make up for his occasional lapses in patience. Because uniform tension creates a flat appearance, you explain, demonstrating the technique with a sample weaving. Slight variations suggest the movement of air and light that makes painted skies seem alive rather than simply blue. These teaching moments remind you that master status brings responsibilities beyond personal achievement. The techniques you've learned through years of practice and occasional painful mistakes must be passed forward to ensure the craft's continuity. Your apprentices will someday train their own students, carrying knowledge and skills through generations yet unborn. The hunting tapestry nears completion, with each element contributing to a whole that exceeds the sum of its parts. The boar charges through the forest, clearing with fierce vitality, its bristling hide and gleaming tusks suggesting the dangerous power that makes boar hunting a test of courage rather than mere sport. Lord Berkshire sits his destrier with noble bearing, his spear positioned at the moment of greatest dramatic tension, while his hunting hounds display the controlled aggression that centuries of breeding have perfected. The background elements have integrated seamlessly into the composition, the great oak framing the left side with ancient strength, Casterly Rock rising in the distance like a golden dream-made stone, and the lion cub peering through undergrowth with the curiosity that will someday mature into regal authority. Even the sky shows the subtle gradations that suggest late afternoon light, filtering through forest canopy. 2 weeks before the harvest feast, Lord Berkshire arrives for final inspection, accompanied by his steward and Maester Qyburn. Their expressions show the particular satisfaction of patrons whose investment has produced results that exceed expectations. The hunting scene spreads before them in all its silk and gold glory, every detail rendered with the precision that separates masterwork from competent craftsmanship. Magnificent, Lord Berkshire declares, walking slowly along the loom to examine the work from different angles. The boar seems ready to charge from the silk itself. The detailed work is extraordinary, adds Maester Qyburn, leaning close to study the techniques used in the forest background. Each leaf appears individually rendered, yet the overall effect remains unified. You accept their praise with the professional satisfaction of someone who's delivered exactly what was promised, despite the modifications and compressed timeline that could have compromised lesser work. The hunting tapestry represents months of focused effort, hundreds of hours of precise handwork, and the kind of artistic vision that transforms expensive materials into something approaching immortality. The final days before the feast bring the intense focus that accompanies approaching triumph. Detail work continues on elements that will only be visible to close examination, because House Lannister's reputation demands perfection at every level. The metallic threads gleam appropriately without overwhelming natural colors. The perspective remains convincing from all viewing angles. Even the borders show the intricate geometric patterns that frame great tapestries like architectural elements. Your apprentices work with the dedication of people who understand they're contributing to something that will outlast them all. Mira has progressed to handling complex color transitions, while Willem shows particular skill with the metallic threads that add gleaming accents to armor and weapons. The newest apprentice, a girl named Sarah, whose family sent her from Lannisport, displays the patient temperament that marks natural weavers. The night before the harvest feast, you work alone in the workshop, making final adjustments and corrections that only master eyes can detect. The hunting tapestry hangs completely on its frame, every thread in perfect position, every color precisely matched to your original vision. It represents the culmination of skills developed over years of training and practice, enhanced by the particular challenges that serving House Lannister demands. You step back to examine the finished work with the critical eye that never quite accepts completion. The composition holds together beautifully, drawing the viewer's attention through the dramatic action while providing rich details that reward closer examination. The board dominates the center with convincing ferocity, while Lord Berkshire appears as the hero of his own legend, positioned at the moment of greatest courage and skill. The forest setting provides the perfect frame for noble action, its ancient trees suggesting the deep history that makes current events meaningful. Casterly Rock rises in the background like the golden dream that built an empire, while the hunting hounds display the loyalty and breeding that mirror their master's qualities. Even the lion cub adds the touch of genealogical optimism that makes political art effective. The harvest feast dawns clear and bright, with autumn air carrying hints of the changing season that makes this celebration particularly significant. The Great Hall has been prepared with the attention to detail that House Lannister events demand. its walls draped with banners and decorated with the finest examples of the craftsman's art. Your hunting tapestry will be unveiled as the feast's centerpiece, the culmination of months of intensive work. The installation requires careful handling by servants trained in moving valuable artwork, because even minor damage at this stage would be catastrophic. You supervise personally as the tapestry is carried from workshop to hall, watching for any signs of stress or mishandling that could undo months of labor. The piece is heavier than most people expect, its dense weaving and the quality materials giving it substantial weight that must be supported properly. The mounting takes place in the hour before guests arrive, when the hall stands empty except for final preparations. Your tapestry unfolds against the wall, like a window opening onto another world, its colors rich and vibrant under the natural light streaming through the hall's great windows. The hunting scene seems to come alive in its new setting. The boars charge and Lord Berkshire's heroic stance, creating dramatic focus that draws attention throughout the enormous chamber. Lord Berkshire arrives early to inspect the installation, his face showing the satisfaction of someone whose investment has produced exactly the desired result. The hunting tapestry transforms a section of stone wall into something approaching magic, its silk threads catching and reflecting light in ways that make the depicted scene seem almost alive. "Perfect," he declares simply, and you feel the deep satisfaction that comes from challenges met and overcome through skill and dedication. The feast proceeds with the elaborate ritual that marks important House Lannister events, each course accompanied by entertainment that demonstrates the wealth and culture that gold can purchase. Musicians perform pieces commissioned specifically for the occasion, while acrobats and storytellers provide interludes between the multiple courses that will continue deep into the evening. Your hunting tapestry serves as a conversation piece throughout the meal, guests rising from their seats to examine the detailed work that reveals new elements with closer inspection. The boar's fierce eye gleams in the candlelight, while the metallic threads catch illumination in ways that seem almost magical. Several guests inquire about commissioning similar works, and you feel the particular pride that comes from artistic recognition by those qualified to judge. As the evening progresses and wine flows freely, the Great Hall takes on the warm atmosphere that marks successful celebrations. Your tapestry becomes part of the evening's magic, its colors seeming to shift and dance in the flickering candlelight. Lords and ladies pause before it throughout the feast, their conversations creating a pleasant murmur of appreciation that reaches your ears even from the servant section where you dine with appropriate modesty. The success of the hunting commission opens doors that were previously closed as word spreads through the gathered nobility about the quality of craftsmanship available at Casterly Rock. By evening's end, you've received inquiries about 3 potential commissions: a wedding tapestry for a lord's daughter, a genealogical piece tracing bloodlines back to the age of heroes, and most intriguingly, a commission from across the narrow sea requesting a work depicting the dragons of old Valyria. The weeks following the harvest feast settle into a new rhythm as your reputation spreads beyond the Westerlands. Ravens arrive with increasing frequency, carrying inquiries and commissions from houses throughout the 7 kingdoms. Your workshop, once focused on serving House Lannister exclusively, must now balance local needs with the demands of a growing clientele who've heard tales of tapestries so lifelike they seem to breathe. You stand before your loom in the early morning light, contemplating the new commission that arrived yesterday, a request from House Stark for a piece depicting the godswood of Winterfell. The irony isn't lost on you that a craftsman serving the Golden Lions will now create art celebrating the old gods and ancient traditions of the North. But artistry transcends politics, and the technical challenges of depicting a heart tree's face promise the kind of complex work that keeps master weavers sharp. The weirwood's pale bark and red leaves will require techniques you've never attempted, colors that don't exist in nature, yet must seem absolutely natural when rendered in silk. The face carved into the trunk presents particular challenges: how to suggest ancient wisdom and supernatural awareness using nothing but colored thread and careful shading. It's the kind of commission that could enhance your reputation throughout the realm, assuming you can solve the artistic problems it presents. Mira enters the workshop carrying samples of thread that arrive from Braavos, her excitement evident in the quickness of her step. The Free Cities produce silk in colors that Westerosi dyers struggle to achieve, and these samples include the pale silvers and deep crimsons that the Star Commission will require. She spreads them across the work table like a merchant displaying precious gems, each skein catching the morning light with its own particular beauty. The red is perfect for weirwood leaves, she observes, holding a sample up to the window. It has the depth we need without trending toward orange or purple. You examine the threads with the critical eye of someone who knows that color accuracy often determines the success of ambitious projects. The reds are indeed exceptional, deep and rich like fresh blood, yet with the subtle variations that will suggest individual leaves moving in northern winds. The pale silvers will serve for the bark, though achieving the mottled patterns of actual weirwood will require careful planning of the weaving sequence. We'll need to create test samples, you decide, already visualizing the techniques that might capture the supernatural quality that weirwoods possess in northern legends. The face in the trunk must seem alive without appearing human. It's a distinction that could make or break the entire piece. The morning's work begins with sketching, translating the written description and rough drawings provided by House Stark into detailed patterns that can guide the weaving process. Weirwoods don't grow in the Westerlands, so your understanding comes from travelers' descriptions and the ancient texts that Meister Qyburn has provided from the castle's library. The trees are larger than most southerners realize, their white trunks thick enough to dwarf grown men, while their canopies spread wide enough to shelter entire households. The godswood setting adds layers of complexity that go beyond the central tree. Ancient stone walls surround the sacred grove, their weathered surfaces marked by centuries of northern weather. A black pool reflects the heart tree's image, its dark water suggesting depths that might hide secrets older than written history. Even the moss and lichen that cover the stones must be rendered with attention to the particular varieties that thrive in the North's harsh climate. Your apprentices gather around the work table as you explain the project's requirements, their faces showing the mixture of excitement and apprehension that complex commissions inspire. Willem will handle the background elements, stone walls and fallen leaves that establish the setting without competing with the central tree. Sarah shows particular promise with delicate work, making her ideal for the moss and lichen details that will add authenticity to the stone surfaces. The key to success, you tell them, beginning the lesson that will guide months of work, lies in understanding that we're not simply copying appearance, but capturing spiritual significance. The weirwood isn't just a tree. It's a connection between the living world and something beyond human understanding. This philosophical dimension sets the Stark Commission apart from the more straightforward heraldic work that typically fills your schedule. Creating art that suggests the supernatural requires techniques that go beyond mere technical skill, demanding the kind of artistic vision that transforms craft into something approaching magic. The midday meal brings discussion of practical concerns as the workshop adjusts to handling multiple major commissions simultaneously. The wedding tapestry for Lord Ashford's daughter requires completion before the spring ceremonies, while the genealogical work for House Redwyn must be finished in time for their upcoming celebration of ancestral achievements. Balancing these deadlines while maintaining quality standards demands the kind of project management that master craftsmen must learn alongside artistic skills. We'll need additional workspace, you conclude after reviewing the scheduling requirements, and at least 2 more apprentices skilled enough to handle complex color work. The afternoon session focuses on the first test samples for the weirwood bark, where achieving the proper mottled appearance requires layering different shades of white and pale grey in patterns that suggest natural growth rather than artificial design. Real bark develops its texture through years of expansion and weather exposure, creating patterns that seem random yet follow underlying rules of organic development. The technique involves building up multiple layers of thread in varying directions, with occasional touches of pale pink and yellow that suggest the living wood beneath the bark surface. It's painstaking work that requires constant reference to detailed sketches, because even small mistakes in the pattern will be visible in the finished tapestry. You work with the focused concentration that complex problems demand, your shuttle moving through warp threads with the precision of a surgeon's needle. Each pass contributes to an effect that exists more in accumulated impressions than individual threads, requiring faith that the overall pattern will emerge from seemingly random individual choices. Evening brings the satisfaction of progress measurable in inches rather than feet, but progress nonetheless toward capturing something that has never been attempted in silk and thread. The test sample shows promise. The bark texture is beginning to suggest the pale mottled surface that makes weirwoods instantly recognizable, while the underlying technique proves sound enough to scale up to the full commission. The days settle into rhythm as autumn deepens toward winter, your workshop becoming a place where the magic of creation transforms expensive materials into something approaching art. The various commissions progress at their own pace, each presenting unique challenges that keep the work interesting despite the repetitive nature of weaving itself. The stark weirwood grows slowly but steadily, its pale trunk emerging from the silk background like something materializing from mist. The face carved into the bark proves particularly challenging, requiring techniques that suggest ancient wisdom without creating anything that looks merely human. You experiment with subtle asymmetries and unusual proportions that hint at supernatural intelligence without becoming grotesque or frightening. Meanwhile, the wedding tapestry for House Ashford develops its own character as spring flowers and romantic imagery take shape under your apprentice's improving skills. The genealogical work for House Redwine presents different challenges, as historical accuracy must be balanced with artistic beauty, creating a piece that serves both decorative and educational purposes. Your reputation continues to spread as completed works find their way to prominent locations throughout the realm. Ravens arrive with increasing frequency, carrying commissions and inquiries from houses both great and small. The workshop that once served House Lannister exclusively has become a destination for anyone seeking the finest tapestry work available in Westeros. The winter months bring their own rhythm, as shorter days extend lamplit working hours, and the enclosed atmosphere of the workshop creates ideal conditions for detailed work. The cold outside makes the warm, wool-scented interior particularly inviting, while the steady click of shuttles and quiet conversation of apprentices provides the perfect soundtrack for creative focus. You work late into the evening hours when the castle settles into its quieter rhythms and concentration becomes easier to maintain. The stark weirwood continues its slow emergence from silk and thread, each session revealing new aspects of the challenge and new solutions to problems that initially seemed impossible. The face in the trunk gradually takes shape through careful manipulation of thread colors and directions, its features suggesting ancient intelligence without appearing conventionally human. The eyes seem to hold depths that reflect starlight, while the mouth appears carved by time itself rather than any mortal tool. It's the kind of work that pushes the boundaries of what textile art can achieve, demanding techniques that you're developing through trial and experimentation. The red leaves present their own challenges, as individual elements must seem distinct while contributing to an overall canopy effect. Each leaf requires careful color gradation that suggests the play of light through overlapping layers, while the arrangement must appear natural rather than artificially organized. It's work that tests both technical skill and artistic judgment, requiring decisions that can only be made by eyes trained through years of observing how light and color interact in natural settings. Spring's arrival brings renewed energy to the workshop as increased daylight extends working hours, and the warming air makes the close work of detailed weaving more comfortable. The wedding tapestry nears completion as House Ashford's celebration approaches, its romantic imagery and spring flowers creating a mood of joyful anticipation that contrasts beautifully with the more somber, spiritual themes of the Weirwood Commission. You stand before the stark piece in the morning light, assessing months of progress with the critical eye that never quite accepts completion. The Godswood scene has achieved something approaching the supernatural quality that the Commission demands, its ancient stone walls and mysterious black pool providing perfect setting for the hard tree that dominates the composition. The weirwood itself seems to pulse with life, despite being nothing more than colored thread on silk backing. Its pale trunk shows the mottled patterns of actual bark, while the carved face suggests intelligence that spans centuries rather than mere decades. The red leaves catch and reflect light in ways that seem almost magical, their individual character contributing to an overall effect that transcends the sum of its parts. It's ready for final inspection, you tell Mira, who has become your most trusted assistant over the months of intensive work. Her skills have developed remarkably, and she now handles complex techniques that would challenge many experienced weavers. The raven carrying news of the tapestry's completion flies north toward Winterfell, carrying with it your reputation into lands where southern craftsmen are viewed with suspicion. But artistry speaks a language that transcends regional prejudices, and you're confident that the work will speak for itself when it reaches its destination. The months that follow bring commissions from across the known world as your reputation spreads beyond Westeros itself. A request arrives from Braavos for a piece depicting the Titan, while merchants from Volantis inquire about tapestries showing the Long Bridge and Temple of R'hllor. Each commission presents new challenges and opportunities to expand the boundaries of what textile art can achieve. Your workshop has grown from a single room serving a House Lannister to a complex of chambers housing a dozen skilled workers and apprentices. The original loom now serves as the centerpiece of an operation that produces the finest tapestry work available anywhere in the known world, while maintaining the quality standards that made your reputation possible. You stand in the early morning light, contemplating the latest commission that arrived yesterday, a request from across the narrow sea for a piece depicting the dragons of old Valyria. It's the kind of work that could define a career, assuming you can solve the artistic problems of depicting creatures that exist now only in legend and song. The dragons must seem alive despite being rendered in silk and thread, their scales catching light like precious metals, while their eyes hold the intelligence that made them partners rather than mere beasts. The flames they breathe present particular challenges, requiring techniques that suggest both heat and movement using static materials that must somehow seem to dance and flicker. But these are the challenges that make master craftsmanship worthwhile. Problems that push skill and imagination to their limits, while creating works that will outlast their creators. Your shuttle moves through the warp threads with the confidence of years of practice, each pass contributing to magic that transforms expensive materials into something approaching immortality. The castle wakes around you as servants begin their daily routines, and the great wheel of Lannister power starts another revolution. You're part of this grand organism, your contribution as essential as any guard's vigilance or cook's skill. But your work will outlast the political struggles and personal ambitions that drive the immediate concerns of great houses, speaking to future generations in the universal language of beauty and skill. The morning light grows stronger, revealing the true colors of threads that seem different under lamplight. This daily revelation never loses its magic. The moment when artificial illumination gives way to honest daylight, and you can assess your work with the clarity that only natural light provides. Today, as always, the assessment brings satisfaction rather than disappointment. The work is good, worthy of the reputation you've built thread by thread, commission by commission. Your apprentices begin to arrive, their young faces bright with the enthusiasm that makes teaching one of the unexpected pleasures of master status. They carry samples and sketches, questions and observations, the raw material of artistic development that will someday make them masters in their own right. The cycle continues as knowledge passes from experienced hands to eager minds, ensuring that the craft will survive and flourish long after you've laid down your shuttle for the final time. The day stretches ahead with its familiar rhythm of creative work shaped by practical constraints, deadlines balanced against quality requirements, artistic vision tempered by client expectations. It's the life you've chosen and shaped through years of dedicated effort, where each thread placed with care contributes to a legacy woven in silk and gold. You settle into the meditation of creation, where conscious thought fades into the rhythm of repeated motion and complex patterns emerge from seemingly simple actions. The shuttle moves through warp threads, like a silver fish swimming through golden reeds, each pass contributing to magic that transforms thread into dreams made visible. Outside, Casterly Rock rises into the morning sky, like the golden dream that built an empire, its carved chambers and corridors housing the power that shapes kingdoms. But here, in your workshop, filled with a sense of wool and ambition, a different kind of magic happens daily. The transformation of expensive materials into beauty that will outlast the politics and personalities that drive immediate concerns. Your hands move with the unconscious precision of breathing, your mind contemplating patterns that exist as much in imagination as in the silk taking shape on your loom. This is the life of a master craftsman in service to the greatest house in Westeros, challenging, rewarding, and filled with the particular satisfaction that comes from creating works that will carry your skill and vision forward through generations yet unborn. The morning settles into its familiar rhythm as another day begins in the workshop, where dreams take shape in thread and gold, where the magic of creation continues its ancient dance between vision and reality, between the possible and the perfect. Your shuttle moves steadily through the warp, each passing another step toward completing the masterpiece that waits patiently to emerge from silk and skill and the endless patience that turns craft into art. And in this rhythm, in this daily magic of creation, you find the deep satisfaction that defines a life well lived, where every thread placed with care contributes to a legacy that will speak in the universal language of beauty long after the immediate concerns of politics and power have faded into the comfortable obscurity of history well served. The seasons turn as they always have, marking time not in the urgent calculations of politics, but in the gentler rhythm of completed commissions and growing skills. Your workshop has become something approaching legendary within the walls of Casterly Rock, a place where the impossible becomes routine through patient application of knowledge passed down through generations of craftsmen who understood that true luxury lies not in gold itself, but in the skill required to transform it into something approaching immortality. Winter deepens around the great fortress, but within your chambers, the warmth of creativity and purposeful work creates its own climate. The oil lamps burn longer as daylight grows precious, their golden glow transforming evening work sessions into something approaching ritual. Your apprentices have grown skilled enough to handle complex techniques independently, their progress a source of pride that rivals any commission's completion. The Dragon Commission from across the narrow sea progresses with the careful deliberation that mythical subjects demand. Each scale must catch light like hammered gold, while the creature's eyes hold intelligence that spans centuries rather than mere decades. The flames require techniques you're inventing as you work, using metallic threads in ways that suggest both heat and movement, despite the static nature of woven fabric. The wing membrane needs more transparency, observes Mira, whose artistic judgment has developed remarkably over the years. Perhaps silver threads woven more loosely to suggest the delicate skin that allows flight. Her suggestion demonstrates the collaborative nature that master craftsmanship eventually achieves, where apprentices become partners in solving problems that no single mind could address alone. The dragon taking shape on your loom represents not just your individual skill, but the accumulated knowledge of everyone who has contributed to its creation. Evening work continues with the meditative focus that complex artistry demands. Your shuttle moving through warp threads with movements so practiced they seem choreographed. The dragon's form emerges slowly from silk and imagination, each session revealing new aspects of the challenge while suggesting solutions to problems that initially seemed impossible to solve. The creature's head requires particular attention, its features suggesting intelligence and ancient wisdom without appearing merely reptilian. The eyes must hold depths that reflect starlight, while the expression conveys the nobility that made dragons partners rather than simple beasts. It's work that pushes textile art beyond conventional boundaries, creating effects that seem almost magical under proper lighting. Late into the night, when the castle settles into its deepest quiet, you continue working by lamplight that transforms the workshop into something approaching a temple to patient creativity. These solitary hours often produce your finest work, when distractions fade and pure focus allows technique to transcend itself, becoming something closer to art than craft. The dragon's flames take shape through careful layering of red, orange, and gold threads that seem to dance despite their static nature. Metallic accents catch lamplight in ways that suggest actual fire, while the arrangement creates movement that draws the eye naturally through the composition. It's exactly the kind of technical challenge that keeps master weavers sharp, demanding solutions that exist at the intersection of skill and imagination. The months pass in this rhythm of focused creation, each day bringing measurable progress toward completing works that will outlast their creators. Your reputation continues to spread as completed commissions find their way to prominent locations throughout the known world, carrying with them evidence of craftsmanship that sets new standards for textile artistry. Ravens arrive with increasing frequency, bearing commissions from houses and merchants who've heard tales of tapestries so lifelike they seem to breathe. Your workshop must now balance local responsibilities with demands that arrive from places whose names were once merely legends whispered in taverns. The spring cleaning brings the annual ritual of assessing accumulated works and planning for the season ahead. Completed tapestries await shipment to destinations across the narrow sea, while new commissions demand scheduling that balances artistic requirements with practical deadlines. Your assistants have grown skilled enough to handle preliminary work independently, freeing you to focus on the complex techniques that separate masterwork from a competent craftsmanship. As you stand before your looms in the gentle morning light, surrounded by works in various stages of completion, you feel the deep satisfaction that comes from a life devoted to creating beauty that will endure. The hunting tapestry that launched your expanded reputation now hangs in Lord Berkshire's hall, where guests continue to marvel at detailed work that reveals new elements with each examination. The stark weirwood has found its home in Winterfell's halls, where northern lords appreciate artistry that captures the spiritual significance of their ancient gods. Ravens carry news that the piece has exceeded expectations, generating inquiries from other northern houses who seek similar works, celebrating their own sacred places and family histories. Your apprentices continue their development, some approaching the skill level where they might soon establish workshops of their own. Watching their progress provides satisfaction that rivals any commission's completion, knowing that knowledge and techniques will continue forward through their hands and minds. The Dragon Commission nears completion as summer approaches, its scaled form so convincing that visitors sometimes step back in surprise when they first glimpse it. The creature seems poised for flight, despite being nothing more than colored thread on silk backing, its eyes holding intelligence that spans ages while flames appear to dance around its massive form. The evening light filters through workshop windows as another day's work draws to a close, revealing colors in their truest form as lamplight gives way to the honest illumination that only natural light provides. Your shuttle rests beside the loom, its silver surface worn smooth by countless passages through warped threads, a tool that has become an extension of your hands and artistic vision. Tomorrow will bring new challenges as works progress toward completion and fresh commissions arrive with their own unique requirements. The dragon will require finishing touches that transform good work into something approaching perfection, while newer projects await the attention that will guide them from conception to reality. In the growing darkness, you pause to appreciate the quiet satisfaction that fills these evening moments when creation gives way to contemplation. Your workshop holds the accumulated evidence of years devoted to transforming expensive materials into lasting beauty, each piece representing problems solved and techniques mastered through patient application of knowledge earned thread by thread. The castle settles into its nighttime rhythms around you, the great organism of Lannister power, preparing for another day's rotation of politics and ambition. But here, surrounded by the fruits of creative labor, time moves to different measures. Not the urgent calculations of immediate advantage, but the longer rhythms of artistic development and legacy building that span generations rather than seasons. Your hands rest quietly in your lap, temporarily freed from the shuttle's familiar weight, while your mind contemplates patterns that exist as much in imagination as in the silk surrounding you. This is the life you've chosen and shaped through years of dedicated effort, where each thread placed with care contributes to a legacy woven in gold and dreams. The last lamp flickers and settles, its warm light creating shadows that dance gently across completed works and projects yet to be. In this peaceful moment, surrounded by the evidence of skill applied with patience and love, you find the deep contentment that comes from knowing your work will speak in the universal language of beauty. Long after the immediate concerns of any single lifetime have faded into the comfortable obscurity of history well served, where every thread tells a story and every story becomes part of the endless tapestry that connects all human endeavor in the golden dream of creation itself. The last thread is tucked, the tapestries sigh, and night folds gently over Caster Berkshire's golden halls. If this tale brought you a touch of calm, or a chuckle at the expense of a crooked lion crest, consider liking and subscribing. No urgency. My self-esteem wears thicker armor than a Lannister knight. Until we weave again, may your rest be rich, your dreams soft, and your dye jars stay upright.